Hello, hello, and welcome to another edition of Power the Pen. I am LaWanna Bradford here with my fellow author and business partner, Miss Barbara Beckley. Barbara, how's it going today?
It's going really good. Yes,
Great,
I'm here.
good. Well, we're excited to come to you with another edition of Power the Pen. Typically, I have a set author and we're focused on a particular book. But this time we're taking a different approach today. Barbara Beckley and I are both international best-selling authors of multiple books, and our focus today is a conversation on taking your message to the masses. And one of the things that I love about Power of the Pen is not only are we celebrating and elevating the voices of men and women, but messages that are geared to help women expand their impact, influence, and income. But it's also a place where Barbara and I come and we give tips, tools, and strategies as it relates to your positioning as an author and what you can do to elevate your message. And today is that conversation. But before we get started, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Miss Larcinia White and Breathing Room. Once upon a time, I was out of breathing room. I didn't know what it was called, but I love having a label for it. So if we can define it, we can address it. And so breathing room is that space between your current pace and your limits and your abilities. So in breathing room, it's really important that we have that space between what we are capable of doing and what our limits are. And it's a very important concept and is catching on fire with our mommies and our women in our little corner of the world. And I'm so pleased that we will learn more, we will be happier people, and not so stressed out, and we will operate in the love zone and not the fear zone. I love that commercial.
I know, me too. Every time I see it, I just put a big smile on my face.
Well, Larcinia White, she is an educator and actually has a message that has gone viral. And it's about the essence of breathing room and what that means and how it can help us to gain balance and peace and joy and ease and flow in our lives. Well, Barbara, today we're talking about getting your message to the masses.
Love it. Yes, this is a powerful, okay, getting your message to the masses is a powerful message.
That we want to get to the masses.
Yes.
Exactly. And, Barbara, I want you to, if you could just tell the audience just a little bit about your story and how you became an author and how it helped to platform you to other areas, and then I can do the same.
Ooh, okay, so the biggest thing 3 years ago, really 4 years ago, I was in my mind of saying, okay, the only thing I wanted to do at the time is to get a message out to the world, basically regarding owning your voice, understanding who you are, which with birth the PPD that I do, purpose, passion, drive. So I was thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, what can I do besides just talk or speak? And somebody came to me, tapped me on my shoulder and said, Barbara, you need to be in a book, or you need to either do your book or be in this collaboration book. Now, at that time, I didn't understand what a collaboration book was. All I knew is they told me I needed to write, put my story out there and get it to the mass if I wanted to people to really reach out to people. So I did, and they turned me to a publisher and didn't know anything how to write or anything. But the only thing I knew was I had this burning inside of me that I wanted to get on paper and pen. which at that time I was able to do. And I'm telling you, a lot of times everybody has different reasons for writing, but I'm telling you that one reason for me was really just to get my story out there. And I'm so glad 4 years later that I did that, plus in another other books that I'm into, because when I'm gone, and as I keep saying this, when when I move on to glory, as I call it, that this book is going to be there, and somebody in the world will hopefully pick it up, open it up, and read it, and hopefully change their lives and transformation their lives on something that I put in there to give some kind of action item to. So that was my main reason when I first wrote that first book.
And I love that. My story is parts similar and different. So I have always loved to write. In fact, I have many, unfortunately, many unfinished manuscripts. The first was entitled Crosses, and it was a fictional book. So I write both fiction and nonfiction books, and I had never published them. I've been published in professional journals, but never in a book of my own, if you will. But I have a lot of manuscripts. And about the same time that Barbara mentioned that she got a knock on the door, I received a similar knock, and it was for a collaborative book. And the collaborative book, and I want to mention this when we talk about reaching them, getting your message to the masses. What intrigued me was the collaborative book was tied to a bigger cause. It was tied to this whole nonprofit push to help women who were transitioning. So transitioning into whether they were homeless at one time, or transitioning from incarceration back into mainstream lifestyle or life. That I thought, okay, this would be great because all the proceeds of this book is going to go to help that. So I saw not only writing my story, and well, it wasn't really my story, it was a concept. And so I wrote about character, you're not so invisible force. And I picked a message that I thought, as people are coming back into discovering who they are and assimilating into society, our character is something that we wear. I mean, people see it coming at them. So what does that look like? And I really wanted to develop a message that I thought would have an impact on these young girls who were coming out. So that was our initial audience, and then reaching a broader audience. And so for me, just like with Barbara, it was this collaborative book, but it was a way to get this very targeted message to a targeted population, but ultimately springboarding into a larger audience. And I know with you, Barbara, your books have allowed you to speak on different stages. And have you found you've taken that same message and spoken on stages, or is your stage presence something totally different?
Now that I'm thinking about that, I'm glad that's a good thought. Yeah, because I wanted to really transition that whole message moving forward. So it might be not similar, but it goes into the umbrella of what I'm talking about as far as PPD. And even to the point where I use it I found out on sometimes I use that story, that whole platform in my business atmosphere of it. So I kind of move from, because I do the personal development part, but then I also do on my other business side, I was able to take that same chapter and turn it around into a business sense too. So the whole concept fell into both buckets, which that was a good awareness for me, because it even gave me even more reach to more stages and messages I could put out there, instead of just in that one little bucket that I was at the beginning.
And what you said, is a huge golden nugget there, that we write and we get in the book for whatever reason. And we spoke last week, I believe, about knowing that broader why. But you're in this book, but now, as Barbara said, it allowed her to take that chapter and the applications that she had in there and apply it to her business. So now she's reaching a different lane, a different audience in a different way, with the same message.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to challenge those of you who are writers or aspiring writers. Have you thought about the different lanes that you could take with your same message? It might be spun in a different way, it might be packaged in a different way, but it allows you to reach the masses. And it really does take some strategic thought. And from a strategy standpoint, I have two businesses. One is on the financial side, which is mortgage and investment and commercial investment. And the other side is business management and strategy. And so with that, I always apply that talent that I have in strategic planning and navigation in every single thing that I do. And being an author, Barbara, was no different. I thought, okay, I have this book, have this chapter, now what? I don't want it just to be a shelved thing in my mind. Like, okay, did it, nice. But how do I want to springboard it? So that particular message I didn't necessarily springboard, but I started building my strategy messages and weaving in stories to help people understand whether it's financial strategy that you're applying or business strategy, and using a few life lessons in those teaching moments. So my writing is designed to educate and create awareness and foster action through a strategic lens. And Barbara, I think yours is more to uplift, inspire, and create hope, right?
Yes, yeah. And like you said, taking what I've done and putting it in the business lane. So with that, I said that same type of message and put it in effect. Like if you're dealing with things within your business, the things like I always talk about the earthquakes and floods of life, right? So I took it that in a business sense, then you have to hold on to that foundation of your business. Say, you started this business, you believed in what you wanted to do. Don't let other things, kind of just try to sweep it away. So I was like, wow, I took the same message and put it in another lane. I'm telling you, it was like a little kid in the candy store. I was like so excited I can do that and reach even more people.
Yeah, and so here's a little tip, because some people are in many collaborative books, and there's nothing wrong with that. But here's just something to think about. If your topics that you place in these different books align, because some people just they're in the collaborative books, but they literally take the exact same story and just hand it over. There's no change in it. So I'm not talking about that particular writer, but I'm saying if you're Barbara, for example, your message is PPD, purpose, passion, and drive. So if you happen to have 10 chapters that you've written for 10 different collaborative books, this is a tip, folks, for those of you that love collaborative books, and there's nothing wrong with it because you're leveraging. It's the art of leverage. Now you can say, you know what? I'm going to take all these chapters, compile them. Now instantly, what do you have? Your book. Because unless you signed away your rights to that, some people do, but if you still retain your rights to your written work, then you can take it, this compilation, compile it, and now you add your cover. You may make a few tweaks, whatever you want to do, and now you have your own complete book. So that's another way that you can take what you've already done to reach another audience. Or even say, well, I want to take my book or take a chapter, create a little mini ebook, e-pamphlet kind of a thing. And now I have it as an offer, as a free offer to individuals. So that's another way that you can reach the masses, giving them exposure to you. So they're introduced to you, introduced to your style, your messaging. Obviously, if you're going to give something free in the back, you're giving a free, some other like next step call to action that they can take, because again, knowing your why you're doing this free offer. What are you trying to do? Create more awareness, exposure, increase your customer base. Again, Barbara and I talked about all of the different buckets of your whys last week. So please go back to E360 TV and check out that episode. And But when you understand that, and Barbara, I want to turn it over to you, you have more opportunity for influence, impact, and income, right?
Yes. Yes. I was just thinking those are the eyes, right? Influence, yes. And I was just going to add to that, talking about that with those going back to collaboration books and being that one chapter with all the other authors, you can leverage even with that. Because LaWanna mentioned before about how she was a collaboration book where it was reaching not only, putting her story in there, but she was reaching a certain group of women, and all the women in the book was reaching that. So you can collaborate with others through that book. You can come together and create webinars. And I mean, I know we're going to get a little bit into that, but I was just thinking that leveraging everything that you have from that one chapter, instead of just saying, okay, I did the chapter, I'm done. You're not done. In fact, you're only beginning. I always tell a lot of people, you're only beginning when you do that one chapter if you're a collaboration book.
Right. Unless all you wanted, I mean, because there's some people, it really is a bucket list thing. I want it to be in a book and that's done, and you don't want to do anything else. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're saying, if you have this message that you just got to get out, it's just a part of your being. Then what Barbara is sharing is there's so many layers that you can start peeling back, and doing so where not only do you have breadth, but you have depth. So we can skirt on the top, but not have depth. So you want to go wide and deep. And when you were talking about the different authors, Barbara, this came to mind. And I'm just curious, and this is something for you to ask. If you've ever been in a collaborative book, typically in a collaborative book, in your chapter at the end, it's everyone's contact information. And I want to know, for you to ask yourself this question, how many of you have actually called, emailed, DM'd these other authors to formally introduce yourself, let them know what you're doing, find out what they're doing, and then ask, how might we support each other going forward? Or do you have a podcast, or do you have an upcoming speaking event where I can support you? Mm-hmm. Has anyone ever done that? Or are you starting from ground zero, hoping that someone finds you, hoping someone hears your message when you already have a collective that you all were in together? Why don't you start in your warm market? Mm-hmm. It baffles me. Again, this is a strategist in me. I believe in doing things smart and not hard. And I just wonder why there isn't typically that deep dive communication and engagement among authors in the collaborative books.
Yeah. And, and that's why, just to add on to what you're saying, LaWanna, that's why it's so important of being aware, the awareness, like I was saying earlier about, you can do this through your chapter. You just have to leave it as a chapter. And when you're not aware of the things that you can do, things could, you just think, okay, this is it. So that's why I like how we're going over the different things, how you can get your message out there, because maybe you thought this was it. But then after you hear some of the ideas that we're talking about, you might go back at that book and say, oh, wait a minute, I didn't know I can do that. Or, yeah, maybe I do need to contact some of these other authors in here. What are they doing? Or maybe they have another book that, you never know. But if you didn't know, like, and I know a friend of mine always say, you don't know what you don't know. But when you do find out, it's a good resource for you to say, to get the flowing again, get the juices flowing again. You never know.
Right. And the title of this show is Power of the Pen. So we're asking, how are you leveraging that power? You've already written it. So when does it become powerful?
That's good.
You've been empowered to write, but when does a message become powerful? Well, when it falls into the line of sight of the audience, or here's another thing. Have you thought about we're just going to focus on collaborative books right now, but collaborative books, using your own voice, read your book. Now you have a little MP3 of your book that you can hand out. Why? Because people are on the go. It's easy to say, well, let me listen to this rather than sit and read it. So again, there's so many, if you just kind of just pause and say, how can I like take this little thing and start leveraging it? Barbara mentioned doing a webinar. Her platform, PPD, can go so deep to, and I'm going to use Larcinia White, who's the sponsor of this event, of today's show. Her message is breathing room. Started from a concept that she read and learned about. Came onto our platform and shared it within the Celebrate You Facebook community. Then from there, she took it to her church, where I think it was like a 6 or 7 week course, where there were they had to have 2 classes. That's how much in demand this was. To now, she is on radio. She is featured in media by media outlets such as ABC, CBS, NBC, Market Watch, with this same concept of breathing room. And now she's going to take the international stage, where she will be before individuals from the US, Canada, Uganda, South Africa, UK, Australia, Europe, talking about breathing room. Look at the amazing opportunity. And she's pouring out of this because it's her personal ministry. It has been so life-changing for her that she couldn't stay quiet. And when you are really impassioned about something, I believe that resources, opportunities, and doors will open to allow you to further that reach, further that message. But you have to be willing to open up your eyes, open up your ears, have conversation with people to create that flow that you want. Otherwise, you're trying to do this all on your own, and there's not a need to, right, Barbara?
No, so much different resources that you can reach out from, and that's why it's nice to us to talk about this and continuously say, like, get your message to the masses, as we're saying, get it out there. I talk to other authors, and I always ask them, I was like, was it really? I want to say, let's just put it like this: when you put the pen to paper, you put yourself out there. You put stories of your life out there, be it good, bad, or ugly. And you took the time out of your life to do that. And you took the time to get the editing done, whatever, everything, that the whole process of it. And then to get it published and to say to yourself, wow, it's out there now. People can read. I'm giving them hope. I'm giving them action items, whatever the chapter was about. And then to say to yourself, okay, I did all that and I'm done. I don't know. I just can't just sit there and just be like, this is it. So when I told other authors that, they're like, yeah, you're right. It did take me a while to do this. I mean, I know some people took years to just do a chapter, or years to just get their book out. So I'm saying all that because look at all that you put it to the pen to paper. Why not get that power part of it and get it, just move it, keep it moving?
Exactly. And again, it goes back to your why. So if it was just, and I don't want to use just because that's minimizing, but if it was to be a check mark in your life's bucket list, this is what I want to do, there's nothing wrong with saying, okay, fine, we celebrate you and you're moving on to something else. But we're talking to those authors where you want the message to do something, even if it's entertaining, even if it's fictional writing, giving people a place of escape, a place of release, a place of respite from all the noise in the world. Whatever it is, if you want more from that, nice book that you have, what are you going to do? Mm-hmm. Barbara and I, we have many master classes that we offer, as well as a full master class that speaks just to that, expanding and elevating your message. We will start back in the fall of 2022 with those mini master classes. We're going to take it on Clubhouse, and then from Clubhouse, we'll go into the master class session. So I'm excited about that. But it's a conversation that I'm finding I don't really hear out there. I hear the prelude. Okay, let's get you excited. Let's find out your message. Let's tell your story. Let's weave it in. Let's and getting it published. But then I don't hear people sitting down with others and saying, let's strategically look at your next steps. What is it that you're trying to accomplish? How do you want to navigate this? Who do you hope to reach? Do you even know how to reach them? That's the other thing. I can say, well, Barbara, I want to specifically reach women who are ages, and I'm being very specific for this example, ages 45 to 55 who are in the entrepreneurial space, who've been in business for at least 5 years, because I know they're going to understand the ebbs and flows of business. And I want them to be at a pain point in their lives where they need to have some strategic elevation, whether it relates to their product, their pricing, or their positioning. I'm giving you that example because that is my target audience for the particular chapters that I wrote. So that's a very tight niche. Now the question is, how do I reach them? Mm-hmm. There's a strategy for that. Mm-hmm. And then the messaging and the branding and I'm gonna turn it over to Barbara because there's a social media component that comes with it, right? When we're talking about reaching the masses, how do you take and create little memes, little tiny messages, little mini videos that are only excerpts from your book chapter? You're not recreating, Barbara.
Yes, definitely. Recreate, I mean, what I always say, repurposing is your friend. So if you can repurpose that chapter and dial it down in little, like she said, little, like maybe 30, 60-second inserts of the book, of a lesson learned, or maybe even a quote that you have your own quote, and you can make that into artwork and put it on your social media. And I know this is not a social media thing, but just to give some items that you already have in your wheelhouse that you don't have to recreate, that you can put out there to the masses so they can see you on those platforms, on your social media platforms. So I always tell, people that I talk to, use what you have, because people are always like, I can't find content to talk about what I love. And I'm like, but I said, do you have a book? I mean, sometimes they say, yeah, I do. I have a few of them. There's your content. I mean, it's really, you could pull it out of there. And then some people ask me, well, I always say it was nice to have your own quotes because, LaWanna, I always tell LaWanna, every time we talk together, she's always pulling out wisdom out of her voice. I'd be writing, I said, wait a minute, let me write that down. There's another quote from LaWanna. And you have to do that with yourself. Have a pad of paper next to you or a pen or somewhere where you're at. And when you start talking to people, if you even hear yourself kind of saying some things, those are things that you can use that's probably being pulled out from your chapter or your book, or you wrote it down somewhere, and you can use that to repurpose it.
Yeah, I like that. I think it's great. Like you said, when you're quoting other people, but also when it's your quote and you're saying it over and over again, then you become associated with that. It becomes recognizable. So that's the other thing. How do you become recognizable, relevant, and indelible? And that's getting out there, being very present, being very active, being very engaging with your intended audience. And really believing, it's like, did you write a message that you liked and really believed in or sold out to? Or was it just something to do to say, again, check? So only you can answer that question.
Power of the Pen with LaWanna Bradford, expanding the impact and influence of authors from around the world. If you want to change the world, pick up your pen and write, said Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Books are uniquely portable magic. Power of the Pen spotlights authors from around the world. Listen as authors share messages that educate, motivate, inspire, and entertain. Join us each Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern on e360tv.com.
Our personal brand, our business brand, that's that impression. That's an extension of yourself. We're not talking about your colors and your logo and all the bells and whistles, but it's your promise. It's how you promise to show up in life, how you promise to show up in business. It's your brand. It's a commitment. It's an extension. You're not separated from it. So your brand can be perceived as positive, favorable, and attracting, or negative, unfavorable, and repelling. So think about that when you're talking about your brand with your message in your book, or even if you didn't have a book, but you have a message, you have a platform, you have a cause, and you want to get out to the masses. What is the brand that aligns with that? Have you sat down and thought about it. Your brand aligns very much with your values. So if your values and your branding are incongruent, then something's broken and you need to check it and fix it. For those of you that may want to be a part of Power of the Pen, reach out to me, LaWanna Bradford, or Barbara Beckley. We would love to have a conversation with you. We'll get you the application. We're looking at people who, it's different writing. It doesn't have to be fictional. It may be non-fictional. You may want to tell your story. It may be a book of poetry. You may just want to share your voice. You may not have been an author, but you have a voice. You're a spoken word artist that you want to share on this platform. So it is open to you. We're interested in hearing from you. And it's not just solely for authors. We do have men on here who have written books that can be relatable to a female audience. So thank you so very much for joining us for another edition of Power of the Pen. Thank you to our E360 TV community for having us. It's always a pleasure to be a part of you. To those who are joining us on Facebook, Roku, Apple TV, and Samsung TV, thank you for joining us. If you want to catch prior episodes of Power of the Pen, always go to e360tv.com. And before we close, Barbara and I encourage you to remember your voice matters. Do not be afraid to elevate, stand in your purpose, and remember that in life and in your business, when your vision intersects with opportunity, success is inevitable. Until next time, be blessed, everyone.
F. Scott Fitzgerald stated, "Don't write because you want to say something. Write because you have something to say." There are thousands of people waiting to read your book and hear your message. Be a guest on the Power of the Pen TV series. To complete your application and schedule your interview, call 404-618-2824 today. The world is waiting for you.